Hey everyone, thanks for joining. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, well, let's get started. Hey everyone, I'm Kate Dubois. I'm EVP of Omnichannel Growth at Skai, and I'm really excited to be hosting this webinar today. It's been one of our most popular webinars to date, and it's really not surprising to see why. This topic of brand versus performance has been around for a long time. Marketers have been debating what's more important. Is it performance dollars? Is it brand dollars? Well, we decided to settle this matter once and for all with a good old-fashioned pub-style debate. But before I get into that, we're just going to do a little bit of housekeeping first. So first, I just want to remind everybody that everyone is in listen-only mode. So if you have any questions, please submit them on the Q&A button with the webinar control panel on your screen. If you have any sound issues, you can access the audio with your telephone or your computer mic and speakers. And any issues at all, any questions, you can email us at webinar@skai.io. Well, all right, let's get into it. I think everyone can guess which of these images represents our brand and which represents our performance teams. Historically, the brand teams, they've been like the pillar, they've garnered the largest budgets, they've been responsible for the reputation of the company, generating creative ideas, and really making a spark in the industry. And they've also been, reaching the hearts and minds of consumers. And not only those consumers, but also the judges at Cannes and all the big marketing awards. And our performance guy, well, he's been in the proverbial back room. He's heads down in spreadsheets. He's looking at the numbers. He's trying to make sense how to drive the most performance into every single investment with those performance marketing dollars. He's trying to figure out how to make the most of a 30-character headline and how to make impact with a 600 by 600 pixel. So brand marketers have had it pretty tough. How could they ever compete with brand? Sorry, performance marketers have had it tough. How could they ever compete with brand? Well, they really haven't had to. They've just had to sit around and bide their time. So today, and we all know this, that CEOs are looking to marketing and to marketing dollars to drive more growth across the company. And many of you may relate to the CMO in this picture. She's under a lot of pressure. She has to make sure that all of her budget is accountable to that growth target. But she's facing new headwinds these days. Now we have privacy, cookie deprecation, and also a slew of new media channels that are coming to market. And she's not only dealing with her CEO, she has her CFO on her back. So with this, proverbial old adage, if half the money I spend in advertising is wasted, the trouble is I don't know which half. This is no longer acceptable. Marketers are no longer able to say, I don't know which part of my marketing budget is performing. And our CMO is under more pressure than ever. Well, so this should be a heyday for our performance marketers, right? They should be catapulted in the spotlight. Now with performance marketing dollars and online budgets surpassing traditional offline budgets, and we're also seeing that more of these budgets are getting shifted into those walled garden channels, and they're driving more performance and more accountability and reaching that consumer in a more precise way. We're seeing this trend also manifest in more traditional channels. It seems these days that everything has that moniker performance ahead of it. So we're seeing now that we have performance out of home, performance TV, and performance audio. Well, does this mean that brand marketing is dead? Is performance really going to overtake? Is it its time? Well, we don't know. Is it or not? Many of you may have seen that Airbnb recently announced that they had shifted the majority of their search engine marketing dollars in 2019 into brand marketing. And what was the result? Did they see their revenue crash, their bookings crash? It was just the opposite. They reported on their largest quarter of revenue to date. And they're only seeing that this is turning the entire industry on its head. This old question, do I invest in brand or do I invest in performance, is becoming more profound than ever. So what do we do? What's the moment for the market to solve this old question? We're not really sure, but it's, we're gonna hopefully figure this out today. What is this? I didn't expect this happening. Hey guys, what's happening to my screen?
News flash. We are interrupting this webinar with a very important news announcement. CMOs worldwide have been given an ultimatum: brand or performance. One has to go. Which are we going to choose?
Oh, wow. That was really crazy. I did not expect that to happen. Well, it sounds like we need to make that decision. But first, before we get to the panelists in the debate, we want to hear from you, the audience. So which one should we get rid of? We have to make that decision. Is it brand? Is it performance? Or do you still need convincing? Let's see. Wow. So it seems like we have a little bit more on the performance side for those of you that were decisive here. It seems like the majority of us still need some convincing. And I think I do too. I'm not quite sure. So that's why we're bringing in our group of expert panelists to help us solve this debate. So please welcome the team here. We've split them up into hashtag team brand and hashtag team performance, where they're going to fight to the mattresses. They have to take a position. They have no choice to convince us all why team brand and team performance are the most important that we need to keep. So with that, I'm going to introduce my panelists here. They're going to have about 60 seconds to tell us a bit about themselves, their role, and why their team should win. So Cheryl, I'm going to start with you first.
Hi, I am Cheryl Mills Knight, SVP of Brand and Culture at Kendra Scott. We are a fashion meets philanthropy lifestyle brand based out of Austin, Texas, but we have over 130 stores nationwide. We are an omni-channel business celebrating our 20th year in the business. I was the first marketing hire back in 2005, so I've been through quite the journey, and I will say it is all about the brand. It is all about the connection with the people that create the brand, and there would not be any performance marketing without a brand. So thanks.
Wow. All right, so Ethan, Team Brand, I'll shoot it to you. Would love to hear about your background and why Team Brand should win.
Sure. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for being on the line. Ethan Goodman, I lead the media team at the Mars Agency. We are a 50-year-old independently held commerce marketing agency based out of Detroit, but global in scope, in scale. And we primarily help our CPG clients sell more stuff through their biggest retail partners like Walmart, Target, Kroger, increasingly Amazon, Instacart, so on and so forth. So I am repping Team Brand with Cheryl. And this is kind of unfamiliar territory for me because I'm a shopper marketer and commerce marketer by nature. I am a performance marketer. We spend a lot of our clients' dollars in retail media. But today I am all about Team Brand. And I think we're going to try to convince you that brand marketing deserves precedence here because of because of some of the implications around performance, I actually think what we're seeing is as more consumers are skipping ads and kind of opting out of performance advertising. I think as we're seeing that, we're actually seeing in marketing mix models, brand advertising efforts perform better than performance vehicles. I also think, as Cheryl kind of alluded to, and as we'll unpack a little bit, we're all human, and that emotional connection that brand marketing can deliver, I think, is ultimately what is going to sway the balance in favor of a brand here. So looking forward to getting into it.
Amazing, thanks, Ethan. Elizabeth, all right, let's hear from you, team performance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm on the West Coast, Seattle, so I am the group director at Tinuiti, which is one of the largest independent performance marketing agencies. And I'm here to tell you about why team performance is better than team brand, other than that our t-shirts are better because they're just slightly longer, right? To help you out there. But we all love a good brand story, right? We all have fans, we all have the things, but here's the thing, performance pays my mortgage. At the end of the day, that's just how it is. I love a good brand story and an LLB and an Airbnb and Apple, but I don't even have Instagram. How are we going to brand to me? I'm standing in the middle of an aisle of the Walmart and I'm choosing off the shelf. It's team performance. I say Amazon third-party marketplace, Walmart third-party marketplace. There's some brand in there, sure, but mostly it's about the performance. I'm sorry, it is what it is. I like my house. I'm going to keep it.
Great. So we don't want you to lose your mortgage, Elizabeth. That's a good argument there. Jordan, last but not least.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jordan Whitmer. I'm the senior manager of connected commerce here at Johnson & Johnson. And my role specifically, it follows retail media performance and how we squeeze more out of the channels. And I don't come from a media background, which is probably why I don't lend myself to brand marketing. I haven't drank the brand Kool-Aid so far in my career. I come from supply chain, demand planning, and forecasting. How do we actually hit a number and run a business? And because of that, I'm representing team performance today. And I love what Cheryl said off the top about there is no brand without performance. Is such an interesting idea. You've probably heard the adage somewhere, some of you might know where it came from, that brand is actually Latin for irrational margins. What defines your brand is the fact that you can go and extract more margin out of a marketplace than somebody that doesn't have it. If you're managing to irrational margins, you're managing to a number. You are trying to optimize to get more out of your spend, more of your activity, more out of your business than your next biggest competitor. And that's why I lend myself to team performance keeps the lights on.
Got it. Well, everyone, I think you stated a good opening statement here on why your side should win, but I'm still not convinced. You haven't convinced me on either way, whether brand or performance should stay or go. So I want to start with this first question. We've all seen the headlines. CMO tenure has been, reducing every single year. CMOs are held more accountable. I think it's below 2 years at this point. So how does the CMO keep their job and justify investing in things that don't have those accountable metrics when we're seeing the economic climate change? And Cheryl, I'll start with you because you did start off with a very provocative statement that without brand there wouldn't be performance. So why should a CMO keep their job by investing in brand?
I'll take it one step further. Everything that the customer experiences is brand, even if it's an ad, because it's an impression. And the brand and its value comes across because of all of the other touch points. And Elizabeth kind of alluded that it's the only way in which performance marketing is the only way in which transactions happen and conversion happens. Well, that's not true at all. If you think about the customer care team, you think about the store experiences, and you think about the entire team that is helping to run the experience on e-com, not to mention all of the social interaction. There's a reason why all of those touch points lead to conversion. In fact, here at Kendra Scott, we believe connect and the transaction will follow. But without that authentic connection, without having a point of view, without having that emotional connection to the product, to the brand, to what we stand for, there would be no loyalty. So also, let's talk about loyalty, because brand creates loyalty through connection time after time. Loyalty is the people coming back all the time, over and over, dollar bills. But it's all about connecting first and doing it with heart, doing it with just, yeah, doing it with heart. I'll leave it at that, doing it with heart, because that really is how we connect with one another. Now, I'm not saying that performance marketing doesn't have a place. Everyone wants a good transaction, right? We want to have a good transaction. And how many people shop at Amazon? Great. Okay, cool. And that is not how we fill our cup. That's how we get the products to our front door in 24 hours or less. But that's not how we fill our cup. And in this day and age, especially with the market, the economic headwinds that we're all facing, everyone is saying, all of the things are saying, go back to what you do best, which means go back to your core. What do you stand for? What are you about? Not just about your product, but it's about what you stand for. As a brand that stands for family, fashion, and philanthropy, we hosted 16,000 thus far in the 10 months of this year, 16,400 events in our stores, because we are an experiential marketing brand. We lean into experiences, and that has led us to 20% of our retail sales are from our experiences that we create in our store. So you have to be smart as a brand. You have to really, really, really know your SHIT when it comes to creating really great experiences and having customer service that really can follow through. But it's all about brand. It's all about experience.
That was super convincing, Cheryl. So it sounds like it's not only just getting that customer in the door or the proverbial online door, but it's keeping that connection and that experience long-term and how you foster that. Yeah, you got me leaning towards brand a little bit, I gotta say. So Elizabeth, she's saying that performance marketers can't have heart. Can a keyword have heart? Can a keyword and a product description page connect with the consumer? What do you say to that argument?
I mean, sure, like the template's there. You can fill in all the heart you want, but the fact of the matter is it's still a template, right? And there's still certain metrics and there's still points of USPs or whatever it is that you're going to put in there. And at the end of the day, they either convert or they don't, right? And at the end of the day, there's always a CFO that asks you what the number was. And it doesn't, it is what it is in some cases. And sometimes you just don't need a brand for everything. I mean, that would be the other thing I would look at, is like, I would say there's certain categories where brand is a little more, sure, I'll give it to you. It's important. But the fact of the matter is, when you have little kids, like I have 4- and 6-year-olds, I'm looking for quantity and I'm looking for now, right? So sometimes brand is just not at the top of the list. And when I think about, performance versus, like, again, it's when do I get it? When do I need it? Is it now? And sometimes that doesn't really, experience is the experience. My kid needs socks. That's it. I'm good. Cheryl, it's pronounced shit. Just go ahead. Just say it.
So I see the smack talking happening real time. We encourage this liveliness. So with that, that's interesting. So we're hearing that Elizabeth saying it doesn't matter if you're trying to pull at my heartstrings. I have a moment in need, and I just need it now. And no matter how hard you try and connect with me, that's not going to matter. Which is interesting. I can relate to. We've all been in those oh shit moments, like your kid has a field trip the next day, or there's something that you need. It usually involves kids or work when you're in those moments. But with that comes, what we've historically understood as insights. And I think brand marketers have done a really great job of painting that picture of the consumer, really understanding that ethos, what they care about, what they're going to connect with. And even, I'd say, Elizabeth, someone like you who really only cares about those convenience moments that are going to convince and convert you. So what is the place, Ethan, for insights in a world with brand and performance? How do you see those best used across both? And is there a place, do you see, in this world of retail and shopping?
Yeah, for sure. I promise I'll come back and answer that question. I just want to build quickly on what Cheryl said and kind of her with her opening salvo, and beyond the amazing experiences that brand can deliver. If I think about my favorite brands, it's the ones that deliver amazing, like, event-based experiences, customer service experiences. Those are the ones that I'm really loyal to. But I think the other thing that I feel like is often a misconception, and again, I promise I'll come back to the insights piece. I just feel like I need to get this out somewhere, is when we talk about performance, typically the benefit is that we can hold performance media more accountable than we can brand. But just because we can measure it doesn't mean the performance is good. So like if I were a professional baseball player, my batting average was 0.02, which is like an average click-through rate we're going to see on CPM display media. I'd be out of a job. I'd be playing single A or rookie ball. I'd never get my cup of coffee in the major leagues. And I think so again, I think that's been a big frustration for our clients, is that even though, again, we can measure performance media in real time, campaign by campaign, and we can optimize it, we're talking about optimizing something that isn't very good to begin with. And then on the flip side, as I kind of said at the beginning, what we're seeing again and again in marketing mix models is that brand-driven media like linear TV, increasingly CTV, so on and so forth, that tends to deliver better long-term ROI. So I just want to put that out there. As far as the role of insights is concerned, I think you're right. I think typically we pay more credence to that in brand, and I think that's why typically we see these brand efforts driving more effectiveness, is because we're able to, at the beginning of an engagement, really truly understand what makes consumers tick, and use those insights to help drive what types of experiences we're going to create for them, what type of messaging is going to resonate with them. And I think that helping to understand their why and build that emotional connection is really what is driving brand loyalty and repeat purchase and everything that Cheryl was talking about. I do think that if I'm sitting on the other side of the fence, more and more our clients are pushing for more insight driven, not just data driven, but true insight driven performance media and marketing. And I think that agencies and brands are better able to deliver that. And I think that actually is creating better performance media experiences. But I think insights, again, hugely important, because it gets to it ultimately gets down to that that human level, and helps us start to understand what's really going to drive folks to love and purchase our brands.
It's great. So Jordan, what say you? You're at a classic CPG company that's the insights are really the pillar of how you build brand and build marketing, but you're on the performance side. What do you see the role of insights in your world?
Yeah, and Ethan kind of set this on a tee for me. I don't know if you knew I'm a big baseball guy. So we're gonna let's keep with the logic, because I love it. Let's say you've got a beautiful swing, swagger for days, and you hit 100. You have a brain. It sucks. And the only way you know that it sucks and what you need to change is by measuring it and optimizing it and changing it as you go. So the idea that we can just kind of keep doing, and it looks good, it feels good, it does what maybe N of one brand manager, brand director thinks that it should look and feel like. That's not the business we're in, especially that's not the business we're in big CPG, right? In fast moving consumer goods, we can't behave that way. We have to behave in what I'll call trust but verify. We trust that our brand directors know how to run things. We trust that they know what the look and feel should be. We verify it with data. We verify it with insights every time. It has to be backed before we make multi-million-dollar bets, because you can't run a business without it. I'll also say, yeah, there are a lot of times that we run performance style, performance mindset type advertising, and it stinks also. But a lot of times you can look back and you just have to kind of accept that performance marketing is not alchemy. We can't use it to turn lead into gold. If it's not gold, it doesn't work. We can do the best jobs that we want to do. We can run performance the way that performance is supposed to do, but sometimes we have to be the we say that things work.
Oh, you cut off a little bit there, Jordan, but it sounds like your argument is you have to verify that things are working. You can't just use your gut, is what I understand.
Yeah. I'm sorry if you lost me. I'm in a weird corner of my house. I don't always get amazing reception here. I wish somebody would optimize that. My point was performance has to be the backbone to verify that your brand is what you say it is.
Makes sense. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I talked a little bit about the Airbnb example in the upfront, and Ethan, I'll go back to you since you're on team brand. What do you think of this decision for an industry that's historically been very focused on capturing that consumer in their moment of, I think, the demand, looking for vacations, searching for destinations, where they've put the majority of their eggs in a brand basket? How do you think that played into the performance results from a street perspective in terms of their revenue?
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, it sounds like it's worked. It sounds like it's worked really well. I just happen to have the stat up in front of me now. The company's revenues are up 29% year over year, outperforming analyst estimates. Post decision. So they're clearly doing something right. I think that I think that it's a really interesting. They're in an interesting spot because they're in an interesting industry, kind of pre, during, and post pandemic. If we're out of the pandemic yet, I would have to imagine too that they've kind of reached a point in their maturity where performance media has probably capped out. I don't know if this influenced their decision or not, but they're getting to a point now where they need to win the hearts and minds of consumers in order to get that additional booking every time. And I feel like the consideration set, their competitive set that they're playing, they're playing within, kind of expanded beyond, beyond, for lack of a better way to say it, like the gig rental landscape, and now they're competing with the Hiltons and the Marriotts and these big established players that have built brand equity over decades, if not hundreds of years. And again, it just feels like again, beyond kind of the immediate impact to company performance and revenue, I sense that there was this inflection point where they decided. And again, yes, of course, there's always going to be a role for performance media, but in order for them to kind of continue that momentum and kind of get to that next level, building the brand in a really meaningful way, had to have been paramount.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Ethan. It made me think of, Cheryl, your comments earlier on that experience. What do you see as the level of brand building, brand marketing in a company like an Airbnb? How much do you think that plays into their ability to shift away from these historically ROI-driven channels?
I think any brand that is finding success with these type of trajectory numbers is because they've developed, again, Ethan made that nice comment, brand equity. It is how they've shown up in the world, how their customers are experiencing the brand, and they are a trusted, providing value. They have a trusted business model that people return to. Brand is not just about people, the marketing team, and what they want to play around with and create some fun things. It has to be built upon, brand is built upon strong business and really providing value that is consistent over time to the customer. And the customer is constantly telling the brand, if you're listening and want to really listen, every moment, every touch point, every comment, every like, every exchange, human to human, every moment where there is another a community or a chat or whatever. There are so many things. So brands that are smart are listening and adjusting accordingly. Quick. So I think, again, Airbnb leaned into, they are I mean, freaking their logo is a heart. It's all about community. It's all about sharing your story and building trust, not only with the person that you're renting from, but also the people that are renting are creating a space of trust to bring you, if you will, to come back. So it's all about the human connection. I mean, Marriott's of the world are doing really, really amazing, especially with these boutique hotel aspects. I mean, they're doing great there, but they realize how important it is to shift their business model, because not everybody wants to go to a big ass hotel anymore because it's kind of boring. They want more curated experiences. Airbnb could not be more of a curated one-to-one experience all over the world. And so it's a network, it's a community based upon that trust, strong business model, but really trust and brand equity over time. And so it's all about the brand.
It's all about the brand. Elizabeth, what say you on this? Do you think performance could have done more? Do you think results would have been better had there been a different mix?
I think it's a short term. First of all, there's two things. One, high five to Jordan for trust for Verify. Like, let's just get that on a bumper sticker. Just like put this over here. That's totally right. And no fair, because Ethan brought a dog, and it's very cute, and it's in the corner, and it's distracting me, and I'm gonna have to bring mine in right into it. But anyway, all right. Airbnb, like longevity on this, right? This is one quarter, one time, right? Post pandemic. Let's hold on and see. And I can tell you that from an advertising perspective, yeah, sure, it's all in the brand, but I've also been hearing their ads on the other side looking for hosts, right? So they're trying to get more people to sign up as hosts. That's your inventory. You got to, in order to be able to educate and get people to fall in love with the experience, you have to fill the top of the funnel with these folks that'll eventually convert into hosts, which is your, well, it's your performance, right? There's no inventory, nobody has a place to check into. I also have a question on how they're going to do from a long-term perspective on education of their product, right? And like what the benefits are of an Airbnb. Sure, that can be from the brand perspective, but I look at it from a generational perspective, and there are just some people, you know, eventually they're going to hit the ceiling in terms of number of people that are comfortable with this kind of experience, and we're just going to go back to, you know, what do you call it, volume, right? At the top. So your Marriott's, sure, that's great. But I also, you know, those Holiday Inn Expresses, sometimes you just, again, you just need to check in and you just need to check out. Sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but I think the minimum I've ever spent in a hotel room was probably about 8 hours. Like, but you pay for the full night. Performance.
Really interesting there, Elizabeth. You know, we talked a little bit earlier about loyalty, and Cheryl, you brought this up. It's been a kind of a thread in all the answers. Where does loyalty play in the whole schematic of winning the hearts and minds, but also getting those repeat purchases, which you could argue is performance? Jordan, I'm going to kick this one to you. How would you answer this from a performance perspective? How do you drive more loyalty?
Yeah, I think the two concepts are connected that we just talked about, of what the choices that Airbnb made based on what they were seeing in the marketplace. I would venture a guess that the reason that they quote unquote turned off performance is because they measured it and they saw they had better incremental value to run a separate channel to talk about, or they've generated enough, some call it equity, some call it brand love, some call it hearts and minds. We call it availability, whether it's physical or mental availability. They have generated enough that the right choice for their business was to coast on pre-created availability in consumers' minds. I would also throw loyalty into that mix. The loyalty is the consistent mental availability of your brand or your product. The idea that you have generated enough loyalty over time, mental availability, that you are top of mind. I don't think an Airbnb could have done that without historically having been very much performance driven, gotten themselves to this point to create their brand with performance, create their mental availability with performance, with always being there. And I think that's where we kind of like walk this weird line of how strong is your moat? If you've built enough of a moat, a preventative barrier around your brand that you are always mentally available, sure, you can scale back for periods of time, to Liz's point. You can scale back. It might be a quarter, it might be a year, but it's going to depend on your category. It's going to depend on how well you've performed up until that point and how good your product is, which is not really brand messaging. We're talking a lot about brand messaging today and how you create thoughts, but we're both so hyper reliant on, is the product good? If the product's good, brand can look good, performance can look good, we can all get paid, Liz gets to keep her house. But when we talk about loyalty, I'd encourage us to think about it of how have we built our availability? Are we available to our consumers first when the need arises, we're at the top of their mind? And then second, when we don't always think as much about in marketing circles, but if you're running a business, you think about every day. Am I there when I'm top of mind to actually be there for my consumer physically? I think we've got to strike a balance between the two when we talk about loyalty.
That's great. Ethan, how do you respond to that performance is really the driver and loyalty just based on availability and being top of mind? How's the brand perspective weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think a few things. I think that Jordan made some really interesting points. I think there is this misconception generally that like loyalty is dead, it's fleeting. You know, Elizabeth talked earlier about, you know, like being there in the moment for people, you know, and using performance media as a lever to drive that. And I think that there, you know, depending on the category, that there's value in that approach. I also think, you know, kind of as Jordan's getting at, I think that consistently being there. I don't think, Jordan, this is how you were using mental and physical availability, but I'm going to kind of flip it a little bit, like consistently being available for people in the moment, you know, through smart precision targeting and some of these other metrics. I think to an extent that can drive loyalty, but I ultimately think that, you know, the biggest driver of brand loyalty is brand. It's the experiences that you deliver for people constantly. It's having values that people believe in or align with. It's delivering great customer service. It's everything that kind of falls under that brand umbrella. And again, I don't necessarily have like data to prove that, but hey, I'm on team brand, so I can make it up and say whatever I want. But I do believe that ultimately it is brand that's the primary driver of loyalty, and I don't think that loyalty is that. I happened to see a McKinsey report, you know, just before we jumped on, that did talk about this idea that so loyalty was down during COVID. I think people, for various reasons, were open to exploring their brand preferences. 36% of American consumers switched brands during the pandemic. But on the flip side of that, once things stabilized, 73% of those consumers who switched intend on staying loyal to their new brand. So I think loyalty is alive and well. Again, it's gonna vary category to category, but I think that it's important, and I think that again, it's mainly driven by these brand efforts.
That's really interesting, and I think we could probably all relate to the pandemic moments when we were, you know, seeing lots of new products and new experiences, all of the streaming services. I don't know how many people watched Tiger King that would have never watched it otherwise, but it certainly was a bizarre world we were living in. So speaking of streaming and TV, you know, we're seeing now that more and more traditional brand channels that were about telling stories and bringing those experiences are now branding themselves, I'll put that in quotes, as performance channels. So Elizabeth, what do you think? Are they justified in putting that performance brand in front of TV? How do you square that?
I'm supposed to say yes, because that's where we're headed towards as a future, is be able to measure that from a performance standpoint. But sure, whatever. You got to keep the dollar somehow, right? Like, you know, I guess at the end of the day, it's like, so how did you justify your investment in sponsoring the Golden Globes or the Emmys, or, you know, things that aren't the Super Bowl? You know, total viewers are dwindling on some of those channels or linear channels, and yeah, you gotta keep the money where it is. And I would say the rebrand is, well, sure, whatever, sure. Still gonna crush them with actual numbers at the end of the day. You know, it's like asking like TV, like calling a TV wall in a store, you know, like a performance channel. How you measure? No, you can't measure that. You kind of can. Like I've asked a major retailer, like, oh, well, people dwell there. What people? You know, people. For how long? What are they doing there? What are you showing them? TV. Great. Whatever.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So Cheryl, in a traditionally, brand-focused company as Kendra Scott, are you seeing some of your more traditional channels being leveraged as performance channels, or are you strictly, true to that brand experience approach?
What we've done really well at over the years is the brand, and I would say that in a high, fast growing business, every dollar matters. And where we found success was always in experiential marketing and experiential and social and all of the things that, again, connection leads to transactions for us. So that's where we've put our dollars, and we've built an infrastructure to support that. Are we leaning more into performance marketing and getting smarter about it? Sure, yeah, absolutely. Again, I don't believe that brand means you don't pay attention to the numbers and the performance. I mean, that's just bad business. Brand doesn't exist in a vacuum. It actually is the, if you will, the comprehensive vision connected to the business and the results. So yes, absolutely, we're leaning in, but would I say that it is our number one? Absolutely not. But we're also 20 years in the making. We are wanting to continue to be a high growth business. And so you do have to look at all of the different levers while we're building our marketing and philanthropic managers, which lead to those event numbers and those numbers of events, those 16,400 events that we've hosted in our stores and virtually, but hosted by our team just within the 10 months of this year, drives so much revenue. But at the same, so we're building that business alongside with our retail expansion, and e-commerce is really a vital channel to us. It is the, as we all know, it's the number one billboard, if you will. It's the touch point where you can come and experience the brand anytime, all day, every day, no matter where you are in the universe. So our relationship with performance marketing, in order to capture those people and have them come, that's a part of the journey. But it's my job and the team's job to give them and provide them value once they arrive. And so ultimately, me providing the value with, of course, having really good product as well, but providing that perceived value comes through the brand and the communication and the storytelling and the why and standing for more. And so that is how that connection leads to the transactions. Those conversations convert.
That makes sense. And even these new, there's new emerging, you were talking a lot about experiences, and that blending of, okay, capturing that initial interest of a consumer, but then getting them to take a behavior of that conversion. Performance TV is really shoppable. We're going to start being able to shop on our televisions in our living room. We didn't really fully talk about this before, but I'm curious that, anyone on this panel here, how are you looking at these new emerging channels in, driving either more performance or, justifying that brand investment case?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in on that one, because I think there's a rumor we need to dispel. There's a myth that we need to kind of move ourselves off of as an industry, that TV, audio, print, the 16,000 in-store events, they were never not performance. It has always been performance. How you measure it has changed over time. The data available to you to see if it worked or not has changed over time. The pace at which you could see that has changed over time. But even you go back to the pre-internet, linear TV is king. We ran them in DMAs. We measured sales performance based on different levels of investment, the amount of times we ran, which DMA it reacted in versus a control. It's always been performance. These channels have just lifted the veil and built some new tech that you can see and go a little bit faster. But at its core, what we're trying to do, which is drive the business with our advertising efforts, hasn't changed.
It makes a lot of sense. I'm hearing, yeah, go high five. I'm hearing a lot of the same arguments though on both sides. You know, Cheryl saying without brand, there wouldn't be performance, and Jordan saying everything's always been performance. It's never been brand. I don't know. I'm still not convinced here. I think all of you have made strong arguments, but wanna send it off to you guys to give us 30 seconds. Give us your last pitch. Your closing argument on what you think is the reason why we should vote for brand of performance.
Who's going first?
I'll start with Ethan. Go for it.
All right, so I'm going to let Cheryl kind of hammer home the benefits of the emotional connection and the values and the stuff that she speaks so amazingly about. And again, I'll come back to one of the points that I made at the beginning, which is just because you can measure performance media perhaps more frequently, perhaps more reliably than you can brand, doesn't mean that it works better. Typically, that performance against the main KPIs that our clients set against their performance media efforts, the activities don't perform well against those benchmarks. Again, when you're talking about a 2% or 3% click-through rate on a display ad or a search ad being good, it just makes me wonder what we're talking about. And again, if I were a baseball player, I'd be out of the league very, very quickly. And again, I think time and time again, when you look at medium to longer term marketing mix models that measure like the overall effectiveness of our marketing efforts, we see brand continue to rise to the top. So I'll start on that side, and I'll let Cheryl kind of round it out with probably the more compelling argument around just again the experiences and the connection, as I'm sure she'll talk about.
Team performance, you speak about measuring results. There would be nothing to measure if you didn't have a brand. And I would include the product is a part of that brand experience. So again, chicken or the egg here, you wouldn't have a job, we wouldn't be making money if the product and the brand experience didn't connect and leave a positive impression, provide value for our customers, period, exclamation point. So again, do we need you? Absolutely. But if one was to go away, I would not say that the business would stop looking at the measurable results, right? We could stop investing in advertising traditional, but we wouldn't stop measuring the success of the brand. So if one was to drop, love you.
Ooh. I see a little smack talk there. Team performance, how do you respond? How do you counter that from team brand? Elizabeth?
Cheryl, you just looked into my soul a little bit, and you tried to freak me out or something there, but I hear you. Thankfully, this is like a Zoom environment, so you can't actually touch me. But all right, look, what is your bonus based off of at the end of the day? Is it performance or is it brand, right? It's probably performance. And as much as we would love to employ Ryan Reynolds to do every campaign that we ever put out there, it's just not realistic. And at the end of the day, we're left with cold hard KPIs and a money in versus money out situation. And I prefer to be in the money in bucket. And I'll let Jordan finish that baseball and just, hit it out of the park.
Yeah, we've got more baseball analogies if you want. I think Cheryl, tactically, to go and claim that the fact that the product exists is brand is right trump card in this game. But what I would offer to this group is we need to push away from this, we'll call it the Mad Men mystique of the creative genius that draws on paper. Push away from the Mad Men mystique that says, I know this to be true. Adapt or die. I'll bring it back to a baseball reference. If anybody's seen the movie Moneyball, there's a really, really poignant scene where the entire game changes between how it used to work, what we used to talk about, what we used to think about. And Brad Pitt delivers the line of adapt or die. You must change the way you look at the business, change the way that you look at how you operate, and change the way that, to Liz's point, you hit a goal. If your goal is winning the World Series, Ethan, I don't care if you hit 100 if you get on base half the time, right? It's not a sexy brand. It's not fun to take walks, but it works and it wins championships. So I would encourage everybody, adapt or die. Find the metric that actually pushes you to achieve your business's goals, whether it's brand or whether it's performance, whatever you feel like calling it today. Look at the numbers, find out what actually lets you win.
Amazing. I think that's a new hashtag for this theme today, adapt or die. And walks win, walks score runs, I guess, in the end. So, so let's see, did you guys convince the audience? Have we persuaded the audience on team brand? Without brand, there would never be performance, or on the performance side? So let's see, let's take another poll. All right, guys. I don't know if we have an official trophy. We'll have to see, but who gets to wear the hashtag of the day? Let's see who we convinced. Wow, still not convinced. We can make it work together. So it looks like we have a little bit more on the performance side. We may have a biased audience here considering we're Skai. But I just want to thank the audience, phenomenal. Thank you for all your participation, and thank you to this amazing panel. This was truly an enjoy, I'm like smiling the whole time. I have all these new phrases that I can add into my repertoire of marketing speak, and I think everyone here made an amazing case for team performance or team brand, and I think we can all agree to live in harmony, that they need to work together to grow our business. So thank you all so much, and really appreciate it. Hope we can host you again.
Yeah, thanks everyone. A lot of fun. We didn't do the disclaimer again, but I want to do it again. We were forced to play parts in this conversation. To anybody that cuts my check and makes sure that I get to keep my house.
This is the first I'm hearing of this.
If you need a witness, you can have your boss call me. We put your hand.
That.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. This is awesome, guys. A lot of fun.
Like I'm going to get a lot of calls and emails from from clients asking why we're not pulling our dollars from retail media and reinvesting in
Don't worry, it wasn't that good of an argument.
Harmony. Let's go make money and make great connections and high fives and hugs all the way.
Hashtag of the day, let's go make money.
Let's go make money. Adapt or die. Let's go make money. Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.